How's it going guys, Chris here with another Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 guide for you today, and in this one we're going to be focusing on the Lachmann 7.62, a pretty powerful battle rifle unlocked at rank 16. So at the very end of the Second World War, German gun designers were pretty busy developing assault rifle concepts, leading to newer advancements in technology several years later in the 1950s. This is where the G3 battle rifle came into the scene, a new innovative weapon at the time utilising the full-fat 7.62 NATO cartridge, developed by Heckler & Koch to be supplied to the West German military. This early G3 design wasn't exactly anything special, but it had formed the foundations of a long line of future HK weapons, from SMGs such as the MP5 to sniper rifles like the PSG-1. As the years rolled by, the G3 rifle got its improvements and updates, eventually leading to probably its most popular iteration, the G3A3, or Lachmann 7.62 in the game. A variant produced in large quantities featuring improved sights and a fixed plastic stock for better stability. A very robust and rugged design that fares well in hostile climates, and one that's also quite versatile too, having both semi and fully automatic fire modes. The simplicity of the G3's design made it one hell of a popular gun that made its way into over 70 different countries, being manufactured in 15 of those countries, still being a service rifle in some of them today. It's not a fancy weapon by any means, but it sure was a successful one, being cheaper to manufacture than a few of its rivals, while being very reliable at the same time too, essentially being the forefather of many other successful HK projects. Anyway, looking at the stats, when shooting the Lachmann 7.62's default semi-automatic setting, each bullet's going to deal a considerable amount of damage, especially when hitting the body and head, and unlike the other base game battle rifles, this gun's the only one that's going to deal a bit more damage for stomach shots, reducing the shots needed to kill as a result, possibly making it feel a bit more consistent and more capable of taking some enemies down easier than normal. Apart from dealing more damage on the stomach, it's got some fairly similar damage figures as the other battle rifles, though the Lachmann does retain higher amounts of damage over range a little bit better, and the fact that it can knock players down in just 2 bullets at the chest up to 43 meters gives it a pretty decent amount of stopping power overall, helping to counter the gun's slightly lower than average fire rate. Of course, this is all based on the gun's single shot mode, as flipping it over to full auto is going to lower the damage, increasing the shots needed to kill. In close quarter situations, this sacrifice can often be worth it though, making the gun more aggressive by shooting faster than if you were simply tapping the trigger in semi-auto, with the gun being accustomed to a slight delay in between shots. Something that's probably not going to seem too much of an issue against targets over range, but definitely more so against players nearby. So in this accuracy test from the distance of 10 meters, I'm going to show you the recoil for both fire modes, and if we shoot the Lachmann 7.62 in its default semi-auto setting, we can see that the gun's kick is going to gradually push your line of fire upwards and slightly to the right hand side. Nothing too crazy, with that recoil seeming somewhat manageable in between shots, becoming easier to control if you were to space those shots out a bit more. But switch the gun over to full auto fire and you'll notice something completely different. The Lachmann 7.62 now kicks like a donkey on roids, with the overall pattern of the recoil being somewhat similar, drifting upwards and slightly to the right, but a hell of a lot more pronounced, with shot groupings becoming much wider apart, making the Lachmann far less stable and trickier to control. Against another player in the distance, that higher kick is going to seem far too heavy in most situations, even seeming a bit too jumpy for use over mid-ranges too. You'll therefore have to fire in shorter bursts, or use the gun in its semi-auto setting to retain more precision beyond close quarters, with full auto only really being viable within shorter sight lines, in tight spaces and building interiors, giving it limited effectiveness. With a muzzle velocity of 660 meters per second, its bullet speed is going to be similar to most of the other battle rifles, which is adequate over a medium distance, generally giving it faster bullets than the assault rifles, but not quite as much as the light machine guns. With a standard 20 round capacity per magazine, the Lachmann 7.62's got more than enough ammo to get you through most situations in one piece, especially when using the gun in its semi-automatic setting. In full auto, you'll burn through that ammo at a much faster speed, though its steady fire rate should at least help to make things a bit more manageable than some of the other weapons. The main issue you'll probably find with those 20 round mags is the fact that they can take a fair bit of time to swap over, with tactical reloads lasting 3.7 seconds and empties being just over 4. So not all that snappy, at least compared to a lot of the other magazine fed guns, including all the other base game battle rifles, each having quicker reload speeds than the Lachmann. You'll therefore have to take this into account when using the 20 round mags, and try not to get too carried away, especially within shorter ranges while using that full auto setting, as ammo is going to run out pretty quickly and you'll often be a bit more vulnerable when it does. So reloading when it's safe to do so in between enemy encounters is usually the best way to go. Thankfully for the Lachmann 7.62, it can still slot into aggressive playstyles fine enough, so long as you're careful, as a quicker than average aim down sights time should help to complement its use with offensive tactics, also helping to counter some of that lost speed when choosing an optical attachment, perhaps giving it a slight advantage here over its alternatives. So taking a look at the Gunsmith attachments, there's two ways you can optimise the Lachmann 7.62 for better use with aggressive tactics using that full auto setting more so, or as a mid-range option where you'll mainly be using the default semi-auto function. I generally find that reducing the recoil is going to help in all situations, making it more viable over a wider span of ranges. So a stock attachment like the LMS Factory G79 will probably suit the gun well, even if it does lower your movement and mobility a bit. Otherwise, the base stock does a decent job as it is. To speed up those reloads a bit and help counter one of the gun's main drawbacks, you could opt to trade in that 20 round mag for a smaller 10 or 15 round capacity. This does give you less shots, but also makes the gun a tad more responsive, speeding up reloads while also increasing ADS and sprint to fire speeds, which can often seem like a worthwhile trade-off if you tend to reload a lot anyway in between gunfights. Iron sights are generally manageable for most close to mid-range skirmishes, but if you are intending to use the gun in its base semi-auto mode more so, then applying some zoomed optics should help with acquiring targets further away, something like the VLK 4.0 or the Forge Stack Delta 4 for example, or even a hybrid sight like the DR582, for when you're switching between the gun's fully and semi-automatic modes to better suit the range that you're using it in. If you are using the Lachmann 7.62 as more of a longer range DMR type weapon, I'd probably advise picking a longer barrel, which is going to extend the damage over distance, making those 2 hit kills stretch a bit further away. Perhaps something like the Romeo or the Lachmann Rap. Though if you mainly want to reduce the recoil, the Lach Strike barrel is going to help with this, without sacrificing as much mobility speed as some of the others. Laser sights are going to help speed up mobility and help with hipfire, possibly more beneficial in CQC with the full auto setting, though overall it's not exactly an essential attachment, so you might be better off prioritising something else instead. An underbarrel might seem like a better option instead, perhaps something to suppress the recoil and increase stability, like the Phase 3 Grip or the FTAC Tiger, helping its use over short to mid ranges where the gun is mainly designed to excel. And if you are planning to use the gun over range most of the time, a muzzle attachment to boost range damage and/or bullet velocity like the Polarfire S or the Castovia DX90 are going to be decent options to improve performance over distance. A lot of these attachments are going to impact movement and mobility, but the sacrifice can often be worth it, especially on larger maps and modes where you're mainly going to be dealing with players from afar, only resorting to full auto if an enemy strays too close by. In conclusion, the Lachmann 7.62's got a pretty decent balance of stats to make it an effective weapon over a variety of ranges. It's not exactly designed to be used with gunco tactics, though it can still fare well enough within shorter sightlines if need be, flipping between the rifle's fire modes to cater to the situation at hand. Because it's the only base game battle rifle that dishes out more damage for lower body shots, this can sometimes make it feel more consistent for securing 2 to 3 shot kills, though its lower than average fire rate can increase the kill times, making them feel especially sluggish if you keep hitting limbs, which can sometimes be tricky to avoid over range due to the gun's kick bouncing around in between shots. To gain more precision over longer distances, you might need to space shots out to allow for that recoil to reset in between trigger pulls, though up close you're often better off flipping the gun over to its full auto setting, which will reduce the damage and subject you to a lot more vertical recoil, but will also make the gun more viable for CQC, giving you quicker kill times by letting the gun shoot at its maximum rate. Quicker ADS times will also help to benefit the Lachmann 7.62 within these shorter ranges too, though you will need to keep an eye on your ammo count, because if that magazine runs dry, it can take over 4 seconds to get back into the action again. The fact that the Lachmann 7.62 can deal with enemies both up close and from afar gives the rifle a fair bit of versatility, able to adapt to specific playstyles and adapt to the range in which it's being used. That's it for this one guys, hope you enjoyed the guide, give me a like if you did, and subscribe to stay updated with all the new and older guides available to watch on my channel. Take it easy, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.